Guys, here we go again with another serial killer files. You guys seem to be really enjoying these video reactions, so I will keep doing them as long as you guys hit that like button, share the content, subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel, and if you want to support us even farther, go to our Patreon page. The link is in the description. You get exclusive content, and your name will at some point be at the end credits, depending on how long you are with us. So, all right, we are going to be doing another, serial killer files reaction. Sorry, I have a piece of hair like dangling over my nose. It's making my nose itch. Anyways. Firefox. Let's go to Firefox. And this one's going to be for the Candyman, Dean Corll. This was one that was recommended to me, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll go ahead and check it out. So I will continue this series. Again, if you hit that like button, give this video as many likes as you can. Really does help. These videos get over like 200 to 300 views, and there's like only 20 to 30 likes on them a piece. So like I know there's people who do enjoy watching them. Again, reminder, hit that like button. And we're going to go ahead and dive into this and see what
A man driven insane by intense desire to control, manipulate, and kill led one of the most horrific serial killing sprees of his time.
Holy
Today
shit.
we discuss the Candyman, Dean Corll. Let's open the serial killer file.
Candyman, Dean Corll. Kind of sounds
Dean
like Coral
Arnold
from
Corll
Walking
was
Dead.
born on Christmas Eve, 1939, in Fort Wayne, Indiana, the oldest of two sons. His parents, Mary Robinson and Arnold Corll, had a tumultuous relationship. Arnold was a strict disciplinarian, while Mary was extremely protective of Dean. The pair fought constantly, resulting in divorce in 1946. Following their first divorce, Mary Corll moved with the children to Memphis, Tennessee when Arnold was drafted into the Air Force, trying to keep her sons close to their father. Eventually, Dean's parents reconciled and remarried in 1950, moving to Pasadena, Texas, but eventually divorced for a second time in 1953. Wow. 2 years later, Mary remarried a traveling clock salesman named Jake West and gave birth to daughter Joyce, settling in Vidor, Texas. The couple started a candy company together called Pecan Prince, where Dean and his younger brother Stanley worked day and night during their school years. Dean was a quiet, empathetic child but had bouts of illness
He looks scary right there.
years. At age 7, he contracted rheumatic fever, which went untreated until doctors detected he had a heart murmur at the age of 11.
Damn.
A diagnosis that excused him from physical education classes. During his high school years, he was known as a well-behaved but solitary student who achieved modest grades. Upon graduating in 1958, he moved with his family to Houston to expand their business, but just 2 years later, Dean moved in with his widowed grandmother in Indiana. He began a relationship with a
not
young
too far
woman
from here.
who proposed to him in 1962, but Dean rejected her and moved back to Texas to help with his family's business. His mother divorced his stepfather the following year, renaming the company to Corll Candy Company and appointing Dean vice president. Later that year, Mary fired a teenage employee who complained Dean was making sexual advances toward him. Despite his heart condition, Dean was drafted into the Army in August of 1964 and was sent to Fort Polk, Louisiana for basic training. He later trained at Fort Benning in Georgia as a radio repairman and was permanently assigned to Fort Hood, Texas. During his time in the military, he had his first openly homosexual encounters. Despite an impeccable record, Dean hated the military and sought to return to the family business. He was honorably discharged
Most people I know
from
don't
service
like
on
it.
June 11, 1965, and returned to working for the Candy Company. The family business had moved to Houston Heights, where Dean became known as the Candyman and the Pied Piper, due to his habit of providing candy to the children in the area. He was also known to...
No offense. Two names that are kind of unsettling. If you don't know, the Pied Piper obviously is a, I think the darker tale is that he lured a bunch of children of the townsfolk to their deaths off a cliff, and they died of the cliff and drowned. And with his music, obviously with the pipe. And then the Candyman, obviously, if you haven't seen Candyman, you say his name like 3 times, and he'll come out of the mirror and kill you. I think it was either 3 or 5 times, but anyways.
Flirt with many of his teenage male employees. Eventually, the family business shut down in 1968 when Dean's mother and half-sister moved to Colorado, leading him to take a job as an electrician. Dean met 12-year-old David Brooks in 1967. David came from a broken home and bounced between his parents. He quickly became attached to Dean, looking to him as a father figure, and visited him when David traveled from his mother's home in Beaumont, Texas, to Houston. 2 years into their friendship, Dean groomed David into sexual relationships.
Yeah, of course he did.
Exchanging cash or gifts for oral sex.
Of course he did.
Dean began his heinous murder spree in 1970, exploiting his hold over 15-year-old David to his advantage. When David walked in on him assaulting 2 teenage boys in his apartment that year, Dean bribed him into silence, offering to buy him a car. Later, he would end up paying him to help lure in victims.
Oh,
his first victim
fuck.
was 18-year-old Jeffrey Cohen.
Just got yourself
Jeffrey,
involved with a
college
whole bunch of
freshman,
shit.
disappeared while hitchhiking home from the University of Texas in Austin. Police suspected Dean and David picked Jeffrey up from Houston, took him to Dean's apartment where he was abused, tortured, and strangled to death. Later, David helped lure 14-year-old James Glass and Danny Yates
These are young
away
guys.
From a nearby
These are really
religious
These are
rally
kids.
to the apartment where they met their end at Dean's hands. Then, on January 30th, 1971, the duo kidnapped 15-year-old Donald and 13-year-old Jerry Waldrop while they walked home. Like the other victims, they were assaulted, tortured, and murdered, and had their bodies disposed of in one of Dean's dump sites. From March to May of 1971.
Be careful on who you go with. I mean, thank God we don't live in a society where people are falling for these kind of things anymore, but oh my God, like, this is heartbreaking. This is unfortunate as all hell.
Dean claimed the lives of 15-year-old Randall Harvey, 13-year-old David Hillegeist, and 16-year-old Gregory Winkle, all with the help of David Brooks. No one was off limits from Dean Corll's
So David was
clutches.
just as guilty.
Even David's friends, such as 17-year-old Reuben Watson Haney. David lured Reuben to Dean's apartment under the guise of attending a party, but he was subsequently strangled and disposed of. In the fall of 1971, David lured 2 unknown young boys to the apartment, each separately held alive for 4 days before their murders. Their identities are still unknown.
Oh,
Towards
wow.
the end of 1971,
Jeez.
David introduced Elmer Wayne Henley to Dean, likely with the intent of having him become their latest victim. However, Dean took a liking to Wayne, a 15-year-old high school dropout from a broken home, and offered him work as a paid accomplice alongside David. Prior to becoming involved
Very
with
John
Dean,
Wayne
Wayne had
Gacy.
been close friends with 2 of Dean's
Feeling.
victims, even helping their families put up flyers and searching for them. Wayne claimed he ignored and rebuked Dean's offers for months until he agreed to participate in what Dean called a white slavery ring. Wayne's first lured victim is believed to be 17-year-old Willard Branch Jr., who disappeared on February 9, 1972. Wayne claimed he was unaware of Dean's true intentions until the murder of 18-year-old Frank Aguirre, an accomplice of his. The pair were hanging out in Dean's apartment, drinking and smoking marijuana, when Dean took Frank hostage, handcuffing and gagging him. Wayne allegedly tried to persuade Dean to let him go, but Dean refused and revealed the evil acts he had committed thus far. Despite knowing this, Wayne continued to assist him, becoming more and more sadistic, according to David. The following
Just as
month,
guilty.
David
You're
and
just as
Wayne
guilty.
helped Dean abduct 17-year-old Mark
Oh
Scott,
my God.
who put up a vicious fight and tried to stab his attackers, but gave up at gunpoint. A month later,
Damn it.
during the abduction and assault of Johnny DeLome and Billy Balch, Wayne allegedly strangled Billy and shot Johnny in the head non-fatally. The only victim to be set free
Wow, so he
after
lived
being
through it?
sexually assaulted and tortured was 19-year-old Billy Rittinger. During the summer of 1972, Dean kidnapped and killed 17-year-old Stephen Sickman and 19-year-old Roy Bunton. 2 months later, Wayne and David lured Wally J. Simoneau and Richard Hembry to the apartment where they were held overnight before their deaths. Wally tried to call his
Are
mother,
you
but
ser-
only managed to shout "Mama" into the phone before it disconnected. The final victim of
That's fucking
1972 was
sad.
19-year-old Richard Kepner, who had disappeared on his way.
Could you imagine that mom? I'm about to tear up. Could you imagine that mom, dude, on the phone with her son for the last time, and the last thing she heard was "mama," and then it just hung up, and that was the last thing he ever said to her? Ah, she must have gone through. Who knows what that poor mom gone through after hearing that?
To use a
That's
phone
fucked.
booth on November 12th. January of 1973 saw the death of 17-year-old Joseph Lyles, David Brooks' neighbor. There was a brief lull in the killing when David fell ill and Wayne moved away for a short time, but it began after David recovered and Wayne returned. William Ray Lawrence was abducted by Dean and Wayne in June 1973 and tortured for 3 days before he was strangled to death. 2 weeks later, 20-year-old married father
Keeps
Ray
going,
Blackburn
man. Just like
disappeared while
Gacy keeps
hitchhiking
going.
from Houston to Baton Rouge. In July, Wayne met 15-year-old Homer Garcia at a driver's education school. Homer ended up dead, shot, and left to bleed to death in Dean's bathtub that night. Dean Corll's last 5 victims all fell within a 3-week period. 17-year-old John Sellers, 15-year-old Michael Balch, the older brother of a former victim, Billy Balch, 18-year-old Marty Jones, 17-year-old Charles Cobb, and 13-year-old James Dramala on August 3rd. All 5 victims were bound, assaulted, tortured, and strangled to death.
Just think of how successful and what these kids could have grown up to be if this fucking asshole did not interfere. Who knows what these guys could have been? Yeah, the fucking.
The final straw for Wayne came on August 8, 1973. Wayne, now 17, brought over their next victim, 19-year-old Timothy Curley, but 15-year-old Rhonda Williams tagged along. Dean did not want a girl in his home. Infuriated, he waited until the teenagers fell asleep before he bound and gagged all 3. Wayne convinced Dean to free him so he could participate in torturing Timothy and Rhonda. As Dean began torturing Timothy, Rhonda asked Wayne, "Is this for real?" To which he replied that it was. Rhonda then asked him, "Are you going to do anything about it?" Wayne Henley had had enough. Grabbing Dean's .20 caliber pistol,
Thank God.
he demanded him to stop. Dean was unfazed, egging him on, saying, "You won't do it." Wayne fired at him 6 times, once in the forehead, twice in the shoulder, and 3 more times as he slid down against a wall in the hallway. Dean Corll was dead.
Look, obviously, Wayne needed to pay for his crimes. That's obvious, but you know what? Genuinely, I'm that because I don't want to come off like I'm defending this guy because I'm not. If that was if there was ever a redemption moment for you just to shut the fuck up, do what's right for fucking once, grab that gun, shoot this motherfucker, you did it. You did it, okay? I'm just going to say that. Obviously, you need to answer for your crimes. You helped this guy out. You helped him lure all these innocent fucking kids there. But it sounds fitting, like the perfect karma for him to meet his end at the person that he trusted. That to me that's perfect. That's justice right there. You deserved it. You deserved to get shot. You were evil. Clearly this kid wasn't completely evil because he had a conscience. He was like he knew, oh dude, I see again another unfortunate. You shouldn't have been stupid, dude. You should not have been stupid. You should not have been stupid. And hopefully he got life in prison. I mean that. I genuinely mean that. Yeah, you shot him, but you deserve life in prison at the least.
Wayne was arrested, and while in custody, he detailed how he and David Brooks assisted Dean Corll in raping, murdering, and disposing of victims over 3 years. Police were skeptical, but upon hearing the names of some of the missing boys, they believed him. A search of Dean's home revealed a plywood torture board he used to restrain his victims, as well as sex toys, handcuffs, and a large knife. Dean's van contained rope, hooks, and a wooden crate with air holes drilled into it. A second wooden crate was found in Dean's backyard, along with another torture board. Supplies to aid in disposing bodies were found at a cabin owned by the Corll family. David Brooks initially denied involvement, but later gave a full confession. Both Wayne and David led police to the bodies. All victims were found buried, 17 in a boat shed in southwest Houston, 4 at Lake Sam Rayburn, 6 at High Island Beach, and 1 at Jefferson County Beach. The body of Mark Scott was never located. Most of the victims were identified by April 1974. However, it took until 2008 to correctly identify them all. Dean Corll is suspected of numerous other homicides and disappearances in the Houston area. Wayne and David Brooks were tried separately for their roles in the murders, both defenses arguing that they had not directly killed anyone and that they were unwilling assistants. David Brooks was found guilty for the murder of William Lawrence on March 4, 1975, and was sentenced to life imprisonment. Wayne's first trial found him guilty of 6 counts of murder, and he was sentenced to 6 consecutive 99-year sentences. He requested a retrial, but was found guilty of all 6 murders again on June 27, 1979, with the same sentence. Both men are currently serving time in separate prisons in Texas.
Look, regardless of whether he had a physical contribution to those murders with Dean, makes no difference to me. The fact that you knew for all of those months, those years, 3 years, I think, of Dean doing these kind of acts, and you helping him lead innocent kids to his house when you knew it was wrong, puts you on the same, if not a little bit under, the level of Dean. He may have been the one doing it, but you helped him, and you knew about it, and you could have reported him at any time, but you chose not to. You deserved that life in prison. I'm sorry. I genuinely mean that. You deserved that life in prison. You knew about it. You didn't do shit. Own up to your crimes. And yes, you did shoot him down. You shot Dean down. But, and maybe you saved a couple lives at the end, but like, regardless, 3 years, over 20 bodies, over 20 kids, you have to answer for those. And since you shot Dean, he cannot. So someone needed to pay for that. So yeah, it had to be you. Sorry. To me, you're still in a sense a piece of shit. You always have a choice. Clearly you knew that because at the end you made a choice to shoot Dean. So you had a choice. Comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. What are your opinions on this crazy story? Insane. I'm surprised this guy isn't talked about as much as John Wayne Gacy because he was almost on the same level of evil as Gacy was. To me, they're all evil. I mean, evil is evil. Sorry, that one's sticking with me. I just that moment when he said that the last thing she heard from her son was "Mama," and then the line cut was that is as someone who possibly would be a parent someday, I couldn't imagine if that was literally me on the phone and I just that was the dad or daddy or something like that, and that's it. I would have that guy would have been lucky I was not in his presence because I would have tore that guy up. Keep it retro, guys. Comment down below. Let me hear your opinions. Again, support us on Patreon, and if you want to rock our merch store, links in the description. I'll check you guys out in the next video. Take care. Holy shit, Michael. We made it to We Slaughtered Barbecue. The epitome and the purpose of our trip is to make it to this area.
Oh yes. Food and cattle.
Yep. I just noticed, is that a cemetery way over there, or are those cattle?
No, I think that is a small cemetery.
Holy shit, that's kind of cool and creepy. That thing is massive, but there's not just that one. There are spiders literally
There's
everywhere.
one there. There's one there. There's one over there. And then there's this
Dude, they're everywhere on the
Oh, they're all
property.
huge.
It's
Oh,
cool.
there's one there.